Deborah was 12 years old and already knew how to keep her tears quiet. She lived in a noisy flat in the back of Oluron Street, a dusty corner of the city where generators coughed louder than laughter and neighbors always watched each other. But inside flat 7B, silence was a rule, especially for Deborah. That flat was not a home. Not for her. Her stepmother Ezen had a sharp voice and even sharper hands. She liked the floor to shine, the pots to sparkle, and Deborah to disappear. She didn't like Deborah's real mother. And since her father had died 2 years ago in a road accident, Ezen made sure Deborah knew she wasn't loved. "Are you deaf?" Ezen would shout. "Did I not tell you to finish scrubbing this pot? Do it again. I want to see my face inside it." Deborah never talked back. Talking back was dangerous. She had learned that early after a slap so hard her ear rang for 2 days. Since then she said little, moved quickly, and kept her eyes low. The only time her voice came out was in whispers to herself. Small words just to remind herself she was still alive. She had one school uniform that hadn't been washed in weeks. But that didn't matter because she hadn't been to school since last term. Ezen said school fees were for useful children, and Deborah, according to her, was just a mouth to feed and a hand to work. Her stepsister Nena was just 1 year older. She had shiny shoes, braided hair, and a phone with pink glitter. She didn't speak to Deborah much, only to mock her. "Look at your skirt," Nena would laugh, sipping cold malt from the fridge. "It looks like a mop." Sometimes Nena would throw crumbs on the floor and tell Ezen she didn't clean well, just to get Deborah into trouble. And Ezen never asked questions. She only reached for her belt. Every day felt like a long shadow. Deborah would wake before sunrise, sweep the compound, fetch water, scrub dishes, clean the toilet, and still be called lazy. Sometimes she ate once a day. Sometimes not at all. But there was one small light in her world. His name was Efini. He lived next door with his mother, Mama Efima. Efini was 13, skinny, always smiling, and loved fixing broken radios. He had noticed Deborah a long time ago, the quiet girl who never came out to play, who always looked tired. One evening, when the sky was pink and the air smelled of fried pepper soup, Efini stood by the shared fence and passed her a meat pie through the wooden slats. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. "Just take it." She did. With shaking hands. From that day Efini began leaving small gifts. A boiled egg, a slice of bread, a bottle of cold sachet water. He didn't ask for thanks. He just smiled. And sometimes when Mama Efima wasn't home, he would talk to her from the other side of the fence. "Your voice is in there," he told her once, pointing to her chest. "Don't let them kill it." But one day Deborah heard something that made her blood go cold. She was scrubbing the kitchen floor when Ezen's phone rang. Ezen answered in her loud voice, not knowing Deborah was listening. Yes, Ina," she said. "The girl is ripe now. I'm tired of feeding her. You can come see her this weekend. But bring the money, oh. No money, no wife." Ina was not a name Deborah knew, but the way Ezen said it made her stomach turn. Man. Coming for her? That night Deborah could not sleep. Her whole body was shaking. She remembered hearing stories in school. About girls sold off to old men, girls who vanished, girls who were never seen again. She waited until the house was dark. At 2:17 a.m., when the only sounds were a barking dog and the rattle of a loose gate, Deborah stood by the door. She had no plan. Just a school bag with her father's old wristwatch, her tattered notebook, a sachet of water, and a heart full of fear. She opened the door slowly. It creaked. Her breath caught. She stood still. No footsteps. No lights. She stepped outside. The city was asleep, but her heart was wide awake. Her legs moved faster than her mind. Past the cracked pavement. Past the street lamp that never worked. Past the corner where the taxi man always peed. She didn't stop until she reached the gate of Efini's house. Her knock was soft but urgent. Mama Efima opened the door, sleepy-eyed, wearing a wrapper and headscarf. "Deborah," she said. "What's wrong?" Deborah dropped to her knees. "Please, don't send me back." Mama Efima didn't ask many questions that night. She helped Deborah up from the floor and brought her inside. "Come, child," she said softly. "This is a house, not a prison. You're safe here." The house smelled of fresh soap and fried beans. It was small, just one bedroom, a parlor, and a kitchen, but it felt bigger than flat 7B. It had something that house never had: warmth. Deborah sat on the edge of the couch, her eyes wide, her hands still shaking. Efeni peeked from his room and smiled when he saw her. "I told you," he whispered. "You're stronger than you think." That night, for the first time in a long time, Deborah slept without fear. No shouting. No slaps. No belts. Only the hum of a ceiling fan and the soft ticking of a wall clock. In the morning, Mama Efima made pap and akra. Deborah stared at the plate like it was gold. "Eat, my child," Mama Efima said gently. "You need strength." Deborah ate slowly, carefully, like the food might vanish. She hadn't tasted warmth like this in years. It wasn't just the food, it was the feeling. But peace didn't mean everything was easy. In the first few days, Deborah barely spoke. She still jumped when doors closed too hard. She still hid her hands under the table. At night, she sometimes cried quietly into her pillow, afraid that someone might take her back. Mama Efima didn't push her. She washed Deborah's clothes, took her to the clinic, even bought her new underwear and a toothbrush. Then one afternoon she said, "Deborah, would you like to go back to school?" Deborah's eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak. She only nodded. Took some effort. Mama Efima had to speak with a teacher she knew, Auntie Carol, who worked at community model school nearby. Auntie Carol agreed to enroll Deborah again free of charge just until they could figure things out. When Deborah wore her new uniform for the first time, Efeni clapped and called her Professor D. She smiled for the first time in weeks. But school was not easy. Some classmates whispered. Some laughed at how thin she was. Others asked where she had disappeared to. Deborah didn't explain. She sat in the front row, head down, pen tight in her hand. But inside, her brain began to open again. Her body remembered what it was like to learn, to imagine, to solve. Her hand moved fast over her books. Even her teachers noticed. "She's quiet," one said. "But sharp." Still, danger wasn't far away. One evening after school, Efeni ran into the house panting. "Mama. Deborah. I heard something at the shop. Ezen is looking for her." He came with one man. Big belly, crooked teeth. Asking if anyone saw a girl with braids and a scar near her eye. Deborah froze. Her hand went to her cheek where a faint scar still lived. Mama Efima stood up. "We will not be afraid," she said. "We will be smart." That night they turned off the lights early and didn't answer any knocks. The next day Mama Efima walked with Deborah to school. She spoke to the headmistress. They moved her into a different class and gave her a second uniform so she wouldn't be recognized easily. But Deborah knew hiding couldn't last forever. One evening she sat with her notebook, the same one she had carried when she escaped. She wrote down everything. Not just what had happened but how it felt. The hunger. The beatings. The loneliness. The way her stepmother looked at her like she was garbage. The man who came to buy her. Her handwriting was shaky but the words were strong. When she finished, she showed it to Mama Efima. "This," Mama Efima whispered, reading with wide eyes. "This is powerful." Deborah nodded. "I want people to know. I want to stop her from doing this to another girl." Mama Efima looked at her for a long time. Then she reached for her phone and called someone. The next day, a woman with bright eyes and a kind smile knocked on the door. She wore glasses and carried a small voice recorder. "I'm Auntie Caillou," she said. "I'm a journalist." She sat with Deborah, holding her hand gently. "You can tell me everything. Only if you want to." Deborah took a deep breath. And for the first time she told her full story out loud, from the day her father died to the night she ran. Auntie Caillou listened without interrupting. When Deborah cried, she handed her tissue. When Deborah paused, she waited. 2 weeks later, the article came out. It was titled, "The Girl Who Escaped in Silence." It spread across the city. People read it on buses, in salons, in schools, on radios. Made people cry. Made them angry. Made them talk. And then, one morning, police officers came to flat 7B. They knocked on the gate. Ezen opened the door, frowning. But this time she wasn't the one shouting. They arrested her. And the man with the big belly and crooked teeth? They arrested him too. Deborah didn't watch it happen. He didn't need to. She just sat by the window and whispered to herself, "I am not afraid anymore." People who had ignored Deborah before now looked at her with new eyes. Teachers spoke her name with respect. Classmates stopped whispering. Even the headmistress called her to the office one day. Not for punishment but to shake her hand. "You're brave, Deborah," she said. "And you've given other girls courage." Deborah didn't know what to say. She just smiled softly. But inside her something new had started to grow. It was not pride. It was not anger. It was power. She wasn't just a girl who escaped. She was a girl who had spoken when it was hard. A girl who had been broken but still stood. And she didn't want to stop there. At school, Deborah began to notice things she hadn't before. A girl named Praise always came to class with bruises. Another girl, Kalechi, never brought lunch and often stared out the window with a sad look. Deborah didn't ignore them. She waited. She watched. Then one day she wrote a note and passed it to Praise under the table. "If someone is hurting you, you can tell me. I understand. I won't tell unless you want me to." Later that day, Praise cried in the girls' toilet, and Deborah held her hand the whole time. Word began to spread that Deborah was someone you could trust. Girls came to her with secrets. Some were small. Some were heavy. Some were terrifying. But Deborah listened. And when needed, she spoke up. Quietly, wisely, bravely. One afternoon, Mama Efima came home holding a big envelope with a red ribbon. "Deborah," she called out. "You've been offered a full scholarship to Sacred Light Girls Academy." Deborah's mouth fell open. "Me?" "Yes, my child," Mama Efima said. "Auntie Caillou sent your story to them. They want you. Boarding school. Far from here. Books, clothes, food, all paid for." Deborah stood still. Her heart beat fast. Sounded like a dream. A chance to start fresh. To learn without fear. To walk without looking over her shoulder. But a part of her was scared. She looked at Efini, who was now reading her old notebook and smiling. She looked at the kitchen where she and Mama Efima shared jokes while washing plates. She looked at the gate that once felt like a door to freedom. Could she really leave all this behind? That night she sat outside under the stars with Mama Efima. "I don't want to lose you," Deborah whispered. "You're not losing me," Mama Efima said, brushing her hair. "You're growing. That's different." And so, with trembling hands and a hopeful heart, Deborah packed her bags. When the school bus came, the whole street came out to wave. Even neighbors she had never spoken to before clapped and cheered. "You're our little star," someone shouted. Efini handed her a wrapped gift. "Open it on the road," he said. She hugged him tight. "Thank you for saving me." He laughed. "You saved yourself. I just passed the meat pie." The ride to Sacred Light Girls Academy was long. Trees blurred past the window. Deborah held her notebook close, the pages full of her story, now old and wrinkled. When she opened Efini's gift, it was a brand new notebook with the words, "Write the world better." The new school was big and beautiful. Tall fences. Neat uniforms. Clean dorms. A library as large as a church. Deborah felt small at first. But she remembered what Mama Efima said. "You deserve to be here." In class she listened carefully. At night she wrote in her new notebook. When she missed home, she pressed her father's old wristwatch to her chest and whispered his name. One day a teacher told the class about a writing competition. National level. Topic: the power of one voice. Deborah's fingers tingled. She stayed up all night writing. She didn't write about pain. She wrote about healing. About Mama Efima. About Efini. About the silence that turned into thunder. She didn't think she'd win. But she did. And soon after she was invited to Abuja, to read her piece at the Youth Literary Conference. When Deborah stood on that big stage, her hands shook. Hundreds of faces stared at her. But she took a deep breath. She remembered how far she had come. And she began. "My name is Deborah. I was once invisible. I was once afraid. But I learned that even a whisper can shake the sky. When it speaks the truth." The hall went silent. Then it erupted with applause. After that day, Deborah's name was written in papers again, but this time not as a victim. As a voice. As a leader. As hope. Deborah did not win because life became easy. She won because she chose to stand when it was hard. Her scars became stories. Her stories became strength. And her strength became light for others. No matter how deep the pain, healing is possible. Silence survives, but truth transforms. Every girl deserves to be seen, to be safe, and to be free. Deborah did not just escape. She reclaimed her name, her voice, and her future. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.